two girls. This is just basic lying. This is just lying. I like these interviews that are going on. They get these liberal white chicks, and a guy will ask them a question to trap them, but they should be able to answer the question, but they don't answer it honestly because they don't want to feel like they're racist. But the answer is so blatantly dishonest. So here's a couple of girls. They're being asked if they'd rather live in a black neighborhood or a white neighborhood. What a very simple question. People know that there are predominantly black neighborhoods and predominantly white neighborhoods. And you know the pluses and minuses of living in those neighborhoods. And they just cannot bring themselves to be honest answering this question. Check it out.
Would you rather live in a all black community or all white community?
Oh, Lord. All black.
All white.
Why are you lying?
I'm not lying.
Oh, no.
I just feel like the question is already set up in a weird, like, it could be misconstrued. So
Okay,
I feel
pause
like
right there. Because you're lying. Why are you lying? He asks her. You know, it's funny because she is lying. And she can't explain why she'd rather live in a black community because she doesn't want to. That's why she can't explain why she would rather. Instead, she turns it to like, oh, your question, you know, I think you have some motive here. I think it's a loaded question. Whatever she says has nothing to do with actually answering his question honestly. Because the honest answer, of course, is a white community. So she had to change it as to what his motivation for asking the question was. And that was her motivation to lie about it. Interesting dynamic there. Let's watch more.
if I were to say white, it would be weird. And if I were to say black, it's going to be weird either way. So either way, I'm fucked. So
how's it weird to say white? Why is it weird to want to like live around people that look
it's
like
not
you?
Weird. It's not. I mean, I just feel like, I don't know.
I can say why I said all white.
Okay, say it.
I don't want to feel singled out and like I am, you know, it feels scary to be like the oddball out, right? Like I wouldn't want to be the only brunette in a world of blondes, for example. I wouldn't want to be the only tan-skinned person in a bunch of pale people because it feels like I'm being like singled out.
I'm sure that's the only reason.
Pause that too. Hi, this is Anthony Cumia.
And hello, I am Gavin McInnes.
Together, we're Compound Censored.
And we'd like you to subscribe to our network that has more fantastic content you could shake a stick at. Use this promo code for a one-time super offer.
Do it. It's uncensored and oh so entertaining. Because now she's going, you know, as her girlfriend's talking, she's thinking in her little fucking cashew brain. She's like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And now I have to kind of make it sound like I'm not a racist for saying I wanted to live in a white community. So she just, not so much that black people, that it might be a more dangerous neighborhood, or she wouldn't have some of the better resources available to her as a young white girl in a black neighborhood as she would in a white neighborhood with businesses and people that cater to the people in that community. You know, it's just basic supply and demand a lot of times. You go into a black community and you go into a store in a black community, there are going to be a lot of things geared towards black people, whether it's food, cosmetics, healthcare stuff, whatever it is. We are different as people, and it would be different, and it would be a bit of an inconvenience for a young white girl to live in that area. And that's the nicest part of why she probably wouldn't want to live there. The other part is that crime, obviously, is much more rampant in the black community than in white communities. So she had to make it sound like, well, I just don't want to be the odd person. Like, I wouldn't care if they were green or all yellow or all tan and I'm pale. I just don't want to be the one of something, which again, she just is being dishonest. Oh, I don't want to be the only brunette in a bunch of blondes. Well, are the blondes beating up brunettes? Are the blondes robbing brunettes on a daily basis? Then you'd have a reason. Because I would assume going to school, she didn't really care if she was hanging out with a bunch of blonde girls one day. She didn't just go, uh-oh, I'm the only brunette in this group of friends I'm hanging out with today. I feel a little weird. I'm going to have to get to my brunette friends. That never happened. They just cannot fucking be honest about this problem. And when asked about it, they clam up. They get very nervous. Look at their body language. They're just like covering themselves. Like they don't want to be seen talking like this. So, until this is dealt with, we're still going to continue having these issues. Let's see what else they got to say.
You want to say something, but you're kind of stopping yourself.
No, I'm not. I'm really deeply thinking about it. Is that the only reasons?
You're laughing. You want to say something.
It's very baited. I can tell y'all are just baiting.
I'm being serious.
Okay, look at this guy. He's got a little smirk on his face. You're just happy.
Yeah, see, she even says, she goes, it's baited. Well, yeah, it is a baited question. He's asking because he's so sure that these young liberal girls are not going to be honest, that there is a baiting going on there. But her knowing it's a baited question, she has to be thinking, why is it considered a baited question? Because I want to live in a white community, but it's baited because I can't really say that without coming off looking like a bad person. You see? So it's just the dishonesty. Everyone knows it. Most people know it. Most people think it. They just are so averse to being honest about it and actually saying how they feel. And you got to ask yourself why. The fear is there of cancellation. I understand that. A lot of people, whatever they do for a living, whatever they're pursuing, if they're young like that, they can't just get canceled from it and then open up their own version of it in their basement like I did back in 2014. So a lot of people are petrified about losing their livelihood or their road to whatever career they want to go on. And it's happened. There is a lot of precedent of that happening. So I can understand the fear. But that can't go away until more people actually are honest and speak up. It's sort of a paradox. But maybe at some point. I see it getting more. I see people being more honest about it. People don't seem to be as scared anymore. The black fatigue that people speak of is getting worse and worse, and people just can't hold it in anymore. And I guess that's what it takes. If you're just walking around and you're like, God, I'd love to say something about this, but I can't. Once it gets to the point where it's like, I have to say something about this, then people start talking. There's a lot more commiseration, a lot more people going, oh, yeah? Well, I just heard what you said, and excuse me, you're right. Holy shit, there's a problem. So that has to happen, and that's never a quick turnaround, but I see it happening. I see it. We see it. Don't we, kids? Oh, thank God the nose thing stopped. Oh, I thought my few brains were going to come out of my nose. I didn't cross. Oh, this is Marc Maron. I know Gavin was talking about Marc Maron on his show, and we briefly talked about Marc Maron yesterday on Compound Censored. But this guy is just an asshole. And I know he's promoting a special So a lot of times you just want to get heat. If you're a comic and you're promoting a special, you just want people to be talking about you. They're calling you an asshole. They're calling you a great comic. That's what you want. The majority of people, I believe, are calling Marc Maron an asshole, though. I don't know anyone that finds Marc Maron funny as a stand-up. I don't know anybody. I know a lot of comics, and I know a lot of people that are fans of comics and have seen a lot of them and have a pretty good idea of what makes a good comic and a bad comic. And I'm not just talking about comics that have a different style that you're not into. Some people find them hysterically funny, but that style of comedy isn't yours. I'm just talking, look, we know when you see a comic that is not funny, it's not just, well, you don't get that type of humor. It's more of a dry humor. Oh, they use more physical things. No, just an unfunny comic. We've all seen him. We all know it when we see him. And Maron isn't funny. He's a pompous fucking asshole whose liberal ideology just transcends any funny he tries to make.
I hate to interject, but I'm curious. Did he ever go on Opie and Anthony? Because he seems like the type that would be like, "Oh no, I would never go on that."
No, I think he did.
Oh, he
I
did.
think
Okay.
he was on. And I believe we had other comics in the room at the time.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure who was in there. I want to say Burr, but it was probably someone else. But no, he came on. Here it was. It was Patrice was in the studio, and him and Patrice had some kind of beef going on. And Maron was just walking down the hall. He wasn't even coming in to do our show. He was going to do something else. And someone opened our door, and Patrice yelled out at him to come in and started giving him some shit. And then they started goofing on the fact that he was wearing shorts and a Hawaiian shirt or something. So they were goofing on that. And Maron just, he's just the pomposity of this guy, the self-importance, and the assumption that whatever politics he believes in is absolutely correct. Everyone should believe in it. If you don't, you are a fascist asshole who deserves to die. And that's him to this day. So he's promoting his special and he's trying to get some heat. But if you ask me, all publicity, any publicity isn't necessarily good, especially for comics. Sometimes, I don't think Kramer's publicity at the Laugh Factory years ago ended up being positive publicity for his stand-up career. So even though funniest act I've ever seen. So here's Marc Maron being the lib asshole he is. Let's watch.
At this point, it's lazy and sloppy and hackneyed. To be in a fucking club where, I'm walking down the hall at the comedy club, at the Comedy Store, and, in one room, someone's doing their bit about trans people, and then I get down the hall and there's someone on stage going, well, I guess I got to do my bit about trans people. Like, no, you don't. You don't. It's hack now. I mean, you guys got the freedom you wanted. You can now say whatever you want. They're defeated. Their rights have been denied. The policies that you guys encouraged with your stupid material are now policy. And now, half the people under the umbrella of anti-woke, we've lost a tremendous amount of democratic-leaning ideas and movements. So whether they knew it or not, that's what they were spearheading. So now it's reality, and you want to still keep kicking them? Go ahead.
I don't know that the comedians have had that much power.
Are you out of your mind?
No, I'm being serious.
Joe Rogan. I'm not going to.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You can't separate. Like, if the movement is like, we're being censored. No, you're not. You're not. There's no constitutional censorship issue with your free speech. You say things, and in a democratic shit show of an environment, like Twitter or whatever, there's cultural pushback. And I'm not saying that it was pretty bad in terms of, people getting canceled and stuff. And I agree that was an issue, but that's a specific issue. To frame it as some sort of free speech problem was a misdirect. It wasn't. It wasn't a free speech problem. It was that people were getting cultural pushback. That is not a constitutional issue. No one was being put in jail for saying anything. That's a free speech issue. But my problem is you're going to start talking about anti-woke, and that's going to be your point of view. That's going to be your ideological, grounding for what you do. Okay, that's fine. But why does it have to be the same four things? It's like they talk about the same shit. And I don't know a better definition of hack.
And your array of material is so diverse. And first of all, yeah, he's giving comics way too much power. I've always believed that comics are more a reflection of society than the influence on society. I don't think a bunch of dopey comics going up at the Ha Ha Hut are making policy, are changing the way the government rules in this country. It's a reflection, you dumb fuck. And, trans people, you make a joke about trans. Oh, then the guy down the hall in the other room is doing a trans thing. Yeah, because it's ridiculous. And it's not just going, how about those trans? Let's kill them. Let's take away their rights. That's what someone like Marc Maron and his ilk believe comics are doing. These horrible right-wing comics. They're getting people riled up so they commit violent acts against homosexuals and transgender people and minorities. No. It's been there's a lifetime of entertainment has come from men wearing dresses, from Uncle Milton Berle on the Texaco Star Theater in the 50s to Klinger and MASH, bosom buddies. It's always been a joke. A man in a dress is a joke. And how about the ridiculous policies and ideology and the liberal take on pronouns and it's ma'am and all that shit we see? That isn't fodder for comedy, Mr. Maron? That isn't insanely hilarious? A brute of a man with a wig on and a dress yelling in one of the most manly, deep voices to address him as ma'am, and you cannot see comedy in that? There's no way that can be interpreted on a stage by a comedian as something funny? It's because it's against his politics. So he doesn't have the ability to see comedy in it because it's so against what his belief is, man. And that's a lot worse than somebody just not finding something funny because it's not funny. Now your agenda is interfering with something that may indeed be funny, but you can't see it because you're so politically fucking brainwashed. This guy, Marc Maron. And then he brings up Rogan, because Howie said, I think comedians don't have that much influence. He's like, oh, really? Joe Rogan? Yeah. If Joe Rogan was up on stage doing material like he does, because he's a comic, he's also a commentator for UFC, and he's a talk show host. He does a talk show, a very popular talk show, where he talks about many, many different things: science, politics, conspiracies, guy shit, getting drunk, whatever. UFC. His show runs the gamut. And occasionally he'll have political people on from the left and the right. And they'll get into discussions they agree on or don't. That's a talk show. You can't put that in the category of a comic or comics up on stage at the Cellar or the Comedy Store having this unbelievable effect on American society. That isn't the way it works. And to say that because Rogan has a giant audience for his talk show, that's your excuse for saying comics have influence, it's apples and oranges. He's had very important, influential political figures on his show. He's not doing his act in front of them. You know, J.D. Vance or President Trump didn't take a seat on Rogan's show, and Rogan just started doing his act. And the politician was like, wow, I never thought of that. Let me change policy. What Rogan did was give these politicians of Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, give them a giant platform to discuss something on. And whether the people are influenced by that conversation is their own prerogative. You know, that's the goal here, is to have an open discussion about something, let people hear it in an unbiased way where the mainstream media isn't cutting it up to fit an agenda, and then you draw your own conclusions from it. For someone like Marc Maron to say Joe Rogan is influencing government policy against whatever groups he believes it's happening is in-fucking sane. And his special's going to bomb because no one finds this old fucking liberal douchebag funny. If I may add that in. And I just did. So if you enjoyed that clip,
Then subscribe to Compound Censored using this promo code.